14 months ago, my life was simple. Not extraordinary, not terrible, just simple. I was working 2 jobs, a day shift at a local hardware store, and a night shift at a distribution warehouse loading trucks. I rented a small apartment in an aging building that always smelled faintly of mildew no matter how much I cleaned. My car was a 15-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield and an exhaust leak that made it sound like it was always angry. But it ran. It got me where I needed to go. I had a girlfriend, Erin. We met at a concert, stayed together through some rough patches, and had just started talking. I never imagined that a Tuesday morning, quiet, sunny, and completely unremarkable, would be the beginning of the end of everything I knew. That morning, I was off work for once. It planned to do laundry and catch up on sleep, but those plans were interrupted by a sudden banging on my front door. Moments later, I was in handcuffs, sitting in the back of a police cruiser, trying to process the words that had just been thrown at me. I was being arrested in connection with a burglary that had taken place less than a mile from where I lived. The officers said I matched the description: male, 510, medium build, black hoodie. They said I had been seen on security footage entering a house at around 11:30 p.m. the previous week. The homeowner had returned the next morning to find jewelry and cash missing, around $45,000 worth. They told me this as if it were conclusive, undeniable, but I hadn't been anywhere near that house. I'd been working the night shift at the warehouse. I clocked in at 10 p.m. and didn't clock out until 6:30 a.m. I loaded pallets all night under flickering fluorescent lights, surrounded by boxes and forklifts, not valuables. I explained this over and over during the hours that followed, to the arresting officers, to the detective who questioned me, to the court-appointed lawyer who finally appeared in the bleak gray interrogation room. But the response I kept getting wasn't disbelief, exactly, it was disinterest. Like I was just another case in a long list of people who claimed innocence. After 2 nights in holding, I was formally charged with burglary and possession of stolen property. I had no prior record, no history of violence, nothing that should have given them reason to think I was capable of what they accused me of. But they had the grainy footage, a reliable eyewitness who saw someone just like me near the scene, and a hoodie that was apparently close enough to one I owned. I was granted bail, $25,000, an amount completely beyond my means. Erin somehow convinced her parents to help, and with the aid of a bail bondsman, I was released after nearly 3 days. But even in that short time, the damage had begun. I lost both of my jobs almost immediately. The hardware store manager said I violated policy by missing multiple shifts without notice, and the warehouse cut me off pending the investigation. They didn't say the word terminated, but they stopped returning my calls and removed me from the employee system. With no income and a pending criminal case, I couldn't afford rent. My landlord, who already didn't like me, served an eviction notice citing the criminal charge as justification. By the end of the month, I was sleeping on Erin's couch. The worst part was realizing how quickly people begin to doubt you, not because they don't care, but because they don't want to be associated with someone whose name is now linked with a crime. Erin tried to be supportive at first, but I could feel her pulling away. Her parents made it clear they didn't want her involved with me, and her friends stopped coming around. I overheard her talking on the phone once, trying to defend me, her voice breaking. 2 weeks later, she asked me to move out. With nowhere else to go, I ended up in my brother's basement. He and his wife took me in reluctantly. She didn't try to hide how uncomfortable she was. I stayed out of their way, spent most of my days researching case law and procedural defenses on my phone, trying to figure out how I could fight a system that already seemed to have made up its mind. The court appointed me a public defender who was juggling so many cases he barely remembered my name. When I asked him about gathering evidence, time cards, testimony from my supervisor, even surveillance from the warehouse, he just nodded absently and said he'd look into it. Weeks passed with no update. Then one afternoon, he called to say the prosecution had offered a plea deal. If I admitted guilt to a lesser charge, criminal trespassing and misdemeanor theft, I'd get probation instead of jail time. No record of burglary, no felony, no prison. Just a year of supervision, some restitution, and a fine. I refused immediately. I was innocent. But the pressure started to build. My brother wanted me out. His wife was openly hostile now. I couldn't find work. Every application asked about criminal history, and even though technically I hadn't been convicted yet, my name had been listed in online arrest logs that anyone could Google. The fear of trial became a weight I couldn't lift. My lawyer kept reminding me that a jury could easily believe the circumstantial evidence, blurry footage, similar clothing, proximity to the crime scene. And if they did, I could be facing up to 10 years. Eventually, I broke. I took the deal. Pleading guilty felt like surrendering everything I had left, my name, my dignity, my future. I stood in front of a judge and admitted to a crime I didn't commit because it seemed like the only way to survive. The courtroom was silent. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. After the plea, I thought things might stabilize. That maybe with probation instead of jail, I could find work, maybe get some part of my life back. But I was wrong. The criminal record followed me everywhere. I applied to over 100 jobs. A few called for interviews, but nothing ever materialized. Once, I made it to the final round at a warehouse, only to be rejected when they ran the background check. I tried filing for expungement, only to learn that I wouldn't qualify for at least 3 more years, and only if I completed my probation without any issues and paid the full restitution. One didn't have the money for restitution. I didn't have money for anything. I started selling off what little I had, my guitar, my gaming console, my old laptop, just to buy groceries and bus fare. The longer I stayed in that basement, the more invisible I became. My brother stopped talking to me unless he had to. His wife refused to let me use their washer and dryer. I washed my clothes in the sink when I could. I stopped going outside. I stopped reaching out to friends. Most of them had disappeared anyway. Aaron blocked my number. I felt like I had been erased. Somewhere in that darkness, I decided I wasn't going to let it end like this. I began collecting everything I could, documents, timestamps, anything to prove where I was the night of the burglary. I remembered a coworker, Jay, who'd been working with me that night and had even joked about ghost stories to keep us awake. I reached out to him. Jay remembered. He agreed to sign an affidavit swearing I had been on site the entire night. It wasn't ironclad proof, there was no video left, and the time cards had been deleted due to the system's short retention policy, but it was something. I brought it to my public defender, who looked at it with mild interest before warning me that overturning a plea was rare. Unless I could prove the original deal had been coerced or that brand new exonerating evidence had emerged, the judge would likely reject any motion to withdraw the plea. But I pushed anyway. I asked him to file. Months went by. The court system dragged its feet. Paperwork was misfiled. Hearings were postponed. The prosecutor filed a motion to dismiss our appeal. While that battle stalled, I tried to live a ghost of a life. I took odd jobs, cash work, mostly, helping someone's uncle move furniture, cleaning out garages, scraping paint off fences. I had no bank account. I stopped keeping track of time. The shame never left. Every time I walked into a room, I wondered if people could see it, the guilt I hadn't earned, the stain I couldn't wash off. As of today, I'm still waiting to hear back from the court. My motion has been pending for 5 months. My public defender says not to expect anything soon. I've begun writing down my story, piece by piece, hoping that someday someone might care. That maybe I can submit it to a journalist. That maybe someone will see through the cracks and realize the system made a mistake. But most days, I doubt it. I'm 31 years old. I have no job, no home of my own, no family who trusts me, no partner, and no clean record. I've done nothing wrong, and yet I feel like I've already served a sentence. I'm writing this not because I think Reddit can fix it, but because I need to feel like someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Not every person who takes a plea is guilty. Some of us were just crushed until we gave in. I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit, and I may never be able to prove it. But if you're reading this, and you've made it to the end, then at least someone knows. And that, for now, is the only justice I have.